total outlook, but not to our limited mind. Our mind sees only broken things because our senses are very limited. We don't see everything. We don't hear everything. Okay, we don't taste everything. It's very, very clear because we can only hear a certain range of sounds. Those sounds which are below a certain decibel level, we don't hear. Dogs can hear. And above a certain decibel sound, there are whales in the sea which can hear those high-pitched sounds. And even the bats, they hear high-pitched sound, but we don't. So our senses are limited. Exactly in the same way, our eyes don't see infrared and ultraviolet. So we are seeing only a certain range. So we are limited. So our view of the totality of the reality is very imperfect. But when you go to the spiritual level of consciousness, you start seeing the totality. And that is very convincing, comprehensive view, Sridhar is saying. Okay? The comprehensive view, it includes everything, is convincing to the spiritual, integral total outlook, but not to our limited mind. There are constant opposites and contraries that are logically untenable in the physical world. To every fact, there is an opposite and equal fact that happens. If there is darkness, there is light. If there is psychologically generosity, there is miserliness. Okay, there is cruelty, there is kindness. So everything is opposites in the physical world. In the spiritual world, they are not opposites but complementary aspects. So the infinite, Sridhar is telling what happens is that at our level, the infinite becomes finite. Sorry, the immutable constantly mutates itself into finite forms. The one reality becomes the multiplicities of the cosmos. The impersonal becomes the personal. We are a person, but we can become impersonal. We can cosmicize ourselves. The universal becomes the individual. The individual universalizes himself. Being slips into becoming. The Saguna and the Nirguna okay, are both Brahman. Brahman can be with qualities and without qualities. So these are all contradictions at our level. But in the spiritual levels of consciousness, they are not opposites at all. Okay. The witness, non-doer, becomes the executor of all works. When you go to the spiritual level of consciousness, the higher mind, you realize that you are not doing anything. You are only the watcher. You are the witness. You are the non-doer. So who is doing? Nature is doing. Nature is moving your mind, life and body like a robot. Nature is in control. So this is what Sridhar is saying, that all these things appear opposites to us in the physical world, but they are not opposites in the spiritual world. Thus, everything is a miracle, an incomprehensible mystery to our limited mind. There seems to be law and causality. There seems to be a law. But when we see closely, the mystery becomes even greater. Okay? What is applicable at one level is not applicable at another level. All is a supra-rational mystery, the works of a magician who creates illusions as well as realities. Which is the truth? This is what he has up to that time. Even when you go to the overmind level, which is very high level of consciousness, there seems to be a dichotomy. Dichotomy means a two-ness, not a oneness. You see spirit and matter as separate. They don't seem to be in harmony with each other, even at the overmind level. Okay. So this is what he said in the previous one. Now today we go through each sentence, the para that we read yesterday. But in fact, I am reading the para. But in fact, the cause of this impression must necessarily be sought not in anything illusory or fantastic in the supreme or universal self-existence, but in our own inability to seize the supreme clue to its manifold existence or discover the secret plan and pattern of its action. This is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 line sentence. What he is telling you is that the brokenness, that the opposites are not in the physical world. Not at all. There it is all oneness only. But your instrumentation of looking at this reality is like broken specs. Okay, you are seeing the world through your spectacles, which are your eyes. Okay, and they are like the lenses are cracked. So you see division, you see you see multiplicity. Instead of seeing one, you are seeing several. Okay, that's the problem because of your instrumentation. So what is the solution? Change your instrumentation, and you will be able to see the reality. Okay, at each level there is a different thing. So this is a very important thing that is saying. Change your view of, change your way of looking at things, and you will see the reality. Very clear. So the brokenness that we see in the physical world is not due to the outside world. The outside world is perfect, but we don't see it right. Okay. I go to the next sentence. The self-existent is the infinite. Okay, you can one question may come up and we may say, but why is it like that? Why has God given us broken instruments? Why doesn't He give us the full instruments? Because it's again a game that is being played. He plunges himself into the opposite of himself, and he is seeking himself back again. It's an adventure. Okay, it's an adventure of consciousness. Okay. The word adventure of consciousness is used in Savitri. Okay, and that's why Satprem has used the title of that book, which became very famous all over, and many people turned to Srimanta because of the book he wrote, Adventure of Consciousness. Okay, it's an adventure. You can have a physical adventure of going into a forest and seeking. You can have a vital adventure. You can explore the vital regions. You can also explore the mental regions. Okay, philosophers do that. But you can also explore the spiritual planes of consciousness. That also is an adventure. So that's why when you're beginning with imperfection and going towards perfection, naturally the instruments used are imperfect. That's all. It's very simple. Now I read the next sentence. The self-existent is the infinite, and its way of being and action must be the way of the infinite. Whatever is nature, that is what you are going to see in the world. But our consciousness is limited. Our reason built upon things finite. All the things that we see are, we are reasoning from what we see in the physical world depending upon our senses. That's the whole problem. The senses being, there is an idea that our senses are seeing the reality. But actually it is not. But very rarely do we realize that. When you realize that what you are seeing is not the rightness, then your search for the truth starts. And then you start looking for how to get the truth, and then you stumble onto this yoga. Okay. And yoga also there are 100,000 ways. Okay. So that's what we say. So our consciousness is limited, our reason built upon things finite. It is irrational to suppose that a finite consciousness and reason can be a measure of the infinite. How can a small thing understand us? A cat and a dog cannot understand us, okay? Nor can a small baby. He has to grow up to understand. This smallness cannot judge that immensity. This poverty, bound to a limited use of its scanty means are the senses, cannot conceive the opulent management of those riches. Okay? Wonderful expression, opulent, rich, very rich and splendid. The management of those riches. The divines has wealth which we don't see at all. Okay? Actually, if you look very carefully, you will see, even in the physical world, there is a tremendous amount of wealth which we don't give value to. Okay? Look at the amount of, very simple, look at the amount of beautiful scenes that he makes even in the physical world. How many things he creates, okay? What landscapes, what unbelievable variety of plants, of animals. When you look at all the colors, so there is a tremendous amount of wealth even in the physical world. And if you are sensitive, we can feel that. Okay? It's a richness, no? It's a wealth. If you look at all the colors that are there, those who are artists will appreciate that. They say, my God, look at the combination of colors and the richness of all this. We don't see that. We become blasé. We take it for granted. But if you don't take it for granted and start looking at things, okay, flowers, animals, all the wealth in the physical world becomes absolutely living to you. An ignorant half knowledge cannot follow the motions of the all knowledge. Our reasoning is based upon our experience of the finite operations of physical nature. But physical nature can also have infinite operations. What it is doing in the cosmos, okay? The stars that it is producing, the lights that are coming, all sorts of fantastic things happening in physical space, okay? In the cosmos, the constellations and the nebulas. It's unbelievable when you think about it. In fact, that's what we are discovering now through our those fantastic telescopes that we have put out in space. Okay. By the way, I don't know if you know, but the Hubble telescope now has been retired. It did its own work for about 10 years. Now they have put an even more powerful telescope into space. And through that, you are looking at things which are happening 500 light years away. After 500 light years, that is reaching us, and so we can, in a certain sense, know what happened 500 light years away. We are coming to know it now. Okay? Mind-boggling if you think about it. The light that is reaching us, even the sunlight takes 7 or I think 8 or 9 minutes to reach us. So if there's a flare in the sun, it is 90 million miles away, the sun. So when it reaches us, it is 7 minutes already old. We don't see the instantaneously. Okay, so relative is the physical world. Okay? It's really quite something when we think about it. The stars that we are seeing, we are not seeing the stars as they are now. We are seeing the stars as they were, depending on how far away it is. Okay, as they were then. So our reasoning is based upon our experience of the finite operations of physical nature on an incomplete observation and uncertain understanding of something that acts within limits. All our things are limited. Our body is limited, vital is limited, mind is limited. It is organized on that basis certain conceptions which it seeks to make general and universal. And whatever contradicts or departs from those conceptions, it regards as irrational, false, or inexplicable. Every human being is doing that. He has a certain idea, his mind is built in a certain way, and certain ideas appeal to him. And those ideas that don't appeal to him, he rejects as universally rejectable. But somebody else may like it. That's why there is a constant disharmony in the world. Everybody sees it in a different way. But they think that the way they are seeing is the ultimate. That's not true. Our reasoning is based on an experience of finite operations. And what we don't understand, we seek to make it general and universal. That's what he's saying. And whatever contradicts or departs from these conceptions, it regards as irrational, false, and inexplicable. But there are different orders of the reality, and the conceptions, measures, standards suitable to one need not be applicable to another order. So the physical world is a whole world. It's a cosmos. The vital world above it, with subtler matter, is another world. The mental world is another world. Okay, and all the laws that operate in these countries are all different. It comes down even to the laws that are applicable in India may not be applicable in Korea or in America or in France. All the laws are different. In Singapore, if you are caught with drugs, you will be completely, you will be hanged within no time at all. In India, drugs are illegal, but you won't be killed. In Sweden, drugs are legal. Okay, they say that the individual must have freedom to do what he wants to. So there is a truth to all these things. But we don't, there's disagreement at our level. Okay? But there are different orders of the reality, and the conceptions, measures, standards suitable to one need not be applicable to another world. So, if everything changes according to where you are, what is the ultimate reality? The ultimate reality is in the supermind. That's what he said. But everything below the supermind, everything is relative. Okay. So, our physical being, I'm reading the next line. Our physical being is built first upon an aggregate of infinitesimals, electrons, atoms, molecules, cells. Now note the gradation. Infinitesimals, the smallest possible particle. Electrons, slightly, electron is a part of the atom. The atom is larger than the electron because it contains other things than the electron. Then you come to molecules. Molecules are collection of atoms. And molecules coming together produce cells. Okay? So he is giving you the gradation of how different things are there at different levels. Okay. He has not spoken about nanotechnology because at that time it wasn't discovered. But now we have discovered that the laws at the lowest level are fantastic laws and they can be used. Okay. That's what we are realizing. I think we spoke about it yesterday. Nanotechnology. Even in medicine, they are being able to tap into the powers of the infinitesimal. Okay. Even physics. Okay. So, I won't go into details, but all that is happening. Our physical being is built upon an aggregate of infinitesimals, electrons, atoms, molecules, cells. But the law of action of these infinitesimals does not explain all the physical workings, even of the human body. Much less can they cover all the law and process of action of man's supraphysical parts. The vital is supraphysical, the mental is supraphysical. So those things cannot be explained by physical laws. Physics cannot understand psychology. His life movements and mind movements and soul movements. In the body, finites have been formed with their own habits, properties, characteristic ways of action. The body itself is a finite, which is not a mere aggregate of these smaller finites, which it uses as parts, organs, constituent instruments of its operations. We have a liver, a heart, a stomach, we have kidneys. So it is using these parts. Each one is a infinitesimal part of the body which contains all these things. You can use this image for the reality of the physical world also. The transcendent contains all, it produces the universe, and the universe produces all the different things. So very, very similar to the body and the organs in the body. It has developed a being and as a general law which surpasses its dependence upon these elements or constituents. The body uses kidneys and liver and the heart, but does not depend on them. You might wonder, how can the body not depend upon the heart? Okay, but you must know that the heart, when it stops beating, the life has not gone out, it can recover, it can come back after half an hour. So it is exactly what he's saying. The body does not depend upon the organs depend upon the body. Exactly in the same way, the cosmos does not depend upon the individual, but the individual depends upon the cosmos. And the cosmos depends on the supreme, the transcendent, and the transcendent does not depend on the cosmos. It's a gradation like that. Okay? So, then I go to the next sentence. The life and mind again are supraphysical finites with a different and more subtle mode of operation of their own, and no dependence on the physical parts for instrumentation can annul their intrinsic character. There is something more and other in our vital and mental forces than the functioning of this physical body. Okay? The laws of the physical body are studied by medicine. The laws of the vital world are studied by occultism. Okay? Until that point, man has been able to do. But he has hardly explored the laws of the mental world. That the yogi knows, but it is something so rare that nobody was. Then at the spiritual level also there are laws that operate, and Mother and Sri Aurobindo and many yogis have been able to use these laws. So to use the laws, you must go to that level, see what the laws are, and then you can use them. But we don't, because we are limited and we are at the lowest level. But again, each finite is in its reality or has behind it an infinite which has built and supports and directs the finite it has made as its self figure. Okay? So the infinite produces the individual, and the individual is the finite. The finite depends upon the infinite, but the infinite does not depend upon the finite. It's like a mother and father have a family. Okay, they don't depend upon the family, but the family depends upon them. All children depend upon their parents. Exactly like this. So the cosmos is the parent of the individual, and the transcendent is the parent of the cosmos. Okay, that's what it's saying. So that even the being and law and process of the finite cannot be totally understood without the knowledge of that which is occult within, occult secret, which is occult within or behind it. You know that he is making a very clear distinction between within and behind. Even within us, we have the divine. But behind us also there is a divine, and above also there is a divine. Okay. Our finite knowledge, conceptions, standards may be valid within their limits. That is why morality is valid at our level. But when you go beyond the mind, morality does not appear to be valid anymore. Okay, you have gone beyond the moral standards. But they are incomplete and relative. A law founded upon an observation of what is divided in space and time cannot be confidently applied to the being and action of the indivisible. Okay? This sentence, a law founded upon an observation of what is divided in space and time cannot be confidently applied to the being and action of the indivisible. I'll give you one example. At our level, if you murder somebody, okay, you are punished. Very clear. But this law does not apply in the spiritual plane of consciousness. Because in the spiritual plane of consciousness, murdering somebody does not happen with hate and dislike. Okay? Hate and anger. It does not happen. So when you see that something has to be replaced or destroyed so that a new creation can take place, you are justified in killing the present structure. All old houses are destroyed to make new houses. So that is why if the divine tells you kill this person, okay, you will have to do it. That's what's happening in the Gita, na? Shri Krishna is telling Arjuna, okay, your duty now is to kill all the opposition. And the opposition is what? His own relatives. So he is still at a moral level and he says, no, it's impossible, I can't do it. So Sri Krishna tells him, don't be at a moral level. Come to the spiritual level and you will see that it can easily be done because you are not taking the responsibility anymore. It is the divine that is taking the responsibility. And he is not subject to limitations. I go to the next sentence. A law and process binding for our superficial being need not be binding on what is occult within us. Okay? The soul is not subject to the laws of the body-mind life. Again, our intellect, founding itself on reason, finds it difficult to deal with what is infrarational. We don't even understand the animal and why it behaves in a particular way. There are many mysteries in the animal world which we have still not been able to find out. Okay? There are guessworks, but we don't know. I'll give you 2 or 3 examples. And it's really a puzzle for man. Okay? Suddenly, for no reason at all the whales, okay, they beach themselves. They come out of the sea and beach themselves and die. Okay? We still don't know exactly why that happens. Then there's another very interesting case in Greenland. You know, Greenland is a very almost in the Arctic region. It's a huge territory. It belongs to, I think, Denmark or Holland or something. Okay, they have the right over it. The Greenland is, I think, 20 times or 25 times bigger than that country. So there are small rat-like creatures, rat, okay, like a mice, which suddenly for no reason at all, seems to be no reason, thousands and thousands come and drop themselves to the sea and die. Okay, so these are phenomena which you don't know why it happens. Okay, so we don't understand the animal world. That's what Shraddha is saying. Okay, so we find it difficult to deal with what is infrarational, below our level. Life is infrarational, and we find that our intellectual reason, applying itself to life, is constantly forcing upon it a control, a measure, an artificial Procrustean rule that either succeeds in killing or petrifying life or constrains it into rigid forms and conventions that lame and imprison its capacity or ends in a bungle, a revolt of life, a decay or disruption of the systems and superstructures built upon it by our intelligence. Huge sentence, and we'll have to look at it very carefully. First of all, the artificial Procrustean. Okay, the word Procrustean is an adjective coming from Procrustes. Okay, is a name of in Greek mythology. You have a robber who is Procrustes. Okay, and what he is to do, he is to rob people and kill them. But he used to put them on a bed, and that bed had a fixed size. So when he is killing someone who is very short, to fit the bed, he will pull their legs and make them larger. And when they were too large for the bed, he would cut off their legs and fit. This is an image which means that everything that we don't understand or which is beyond us, we try to fit into our own framework of mind. Okay, it's true, isn't it? It's like a fitting, what they call, there is an expression, na? Fitting a round in a square peg. It won't fit. So, but we force it to fit. Okay, everything we try to understand on the structure of our own brain. Those things which don't fit into us, either we reject or we force it to to our own standards. That's what Sridhar is saying. Okay, so this is the image that he's using, Procrustean. It's an artificial rule that either succeeds in killing or petrifying life. The word petrifying is clear, making it a stone. Okay, life is something living, but when we try to understand life, we don't understand it and we petrify life. We misunderstand it completely or constrains it to rigid forms and conventions that lame and imprison its capacity or ends by a bungle, a revolt of life, okay, a decay or disruption of the systems and superstructures built upon by our intelligence. He is talking here of the universal life in the animal world. We don't understand the animals and we try to force our own standards on them. It doesn't work like that. Then you can also think of your own vital. Your vital is life in you, and we try to control our vital, and then either the life revolts or it ends in a bungle. Okay, bungle means a complete blunder. Okay, so I have a note here, a revolt of life. Okay, that is why life, the vital, can never be controlled by the mind, because the mind tries to impose its conditions on the vital and it tries to control it, but it can never do that. And then what happens? Okay, this is something very interesting, and we are straying into synthesis of yoga, but I think it's worth discussing because we're saying revolt of life. What happens when you try to control your vital? Okay, it's a very interesting thing. Okay, he has discussed this in the synthesis. Suppose you have a I'll take only two very easy examples. Take anger. You feel that anger is not proper and you should control it. Okay. I will take another instance of greed. Okay, you are very greedy and you overeat normally, and then you feel that, oh, I'm putting on weight. This is not proper. I must control my greed. Greed belongs to the vital, and your mind is telling you that this is not proper. Can the vital be controlled by the mind? Normally not. Okay. So what happens then? If you try to control it, there are two things that can happen. One is the life will say, oh, you're not allowing me to have what I want. I want to eat more, but you're not allowing me. All right, very good. I will withdraw my cooperation with you. So it goes into a depression. So when you try to control with your mind, your vital, it goes into a depression. You become listless. You have no energy left. The vital is not cooperating. This is one thing that can happen. The other thing that can happen is, if you are a very strong vital, there are many people with very strong vitals, the vital will revolt. Okay? It will start throwing things at you. What will happen is very interesting. Suppose you try to control your vital. Very interesting. In another area, this will come out. Okay? Suddenly you will start getting angry with others for no reason at all. The vital is, I won't do this, I won't do that. This is the type of thing that happens. It's a very interesting phenomenon in the yogic life. Okay? So then what is the solution? The solution is, don't try to control it with the mind. Appeal to the divine to change it. Very calmly, quietly, you say, yes, I see that these imperfections are there in my vital, but I want to, I want to withdraw my assent to these things, and I want to watch this, and I want to separate myself from my vital. So that's the witness attitude that takes place. So that's the best way. Calmly, quietly, you have to deal with your vital. Okay. I'm going into all this because he is using the word revolt of life. Okay. So a decay or disruption of the systems and superstructures built upon it by our intelligence. Our intelligence is the mind, and it is putting its own ideas, systems, and superstructures. It is forcing it on the vital. It doesn't work. An instinct, I'm reading the next line. An instinct and intuition is needed, which the intellect has not at its command and does not always listen to when it comes in of itself to help the mental working. We should go to a level of consciousness higher than the mind. You may find the solution to this problem, but you don't listen to the intuition that is coming in. That's what they say. An instinct and intuition is needed, which the intellect has not at its command and does not always listen to when it comes in from itself to help the mental working. Okay, this help can come from a living guru, or it can come from your own higher level of consciousness, but you don't want to consider it. Okay, because you are stuck in your own limited nature. But still more difficult must it be for our reason to understand and deal with the suprarational. So, not only we don't understand the infrarational below us, but we don't understand the suprarational above us. Okay? The suprarational is the realm of the spirit, and in the largeness, subtlety, profundity. Okay, the word profundity, note, the adjective is profound. Okay, but the verb, the noun is profundity. Okay? So don't say profundity. Okay? Complexity of its movement, the reason is lost. Okay? There is no reason in the higher levels of consciousness. Here, intuition and inner experience alone are the guide. Or if there is any other, it is that of which intuition is only a sharp edge, an intense projected ray. The final enlightenment must come from the suprarational truth consciousness, from a supramental vision and knowledge. So, the mind is incapable of solving your problem with the vital. Can there be something higher up? Yes, intuition can help you, but you don't listen, and therefore the problem is not solved fully. So, when will it be solved fully? When you go to the truth consciousness. The word truth consciousness is very simple. Super mind. Whenever students use the word truth consciousness, know for 100% sure that he is talking of the super mind. Okay? In Sanskrit, you use the word Vijnana. Truth consciousness, Rita Chit. These are the words used in the Vedas. Okay. So, from a supramental vision and knowledge, this is what he's saying in this huge thing. Neither we understand the lower, nor do we understand the higher. And still we are trying to judge everything by our own limited standards. This is the whole problem. Okay? 8:24. We have got 10 minutes, 11 minutes. So, I think we can read one more para. How big is the para? One page. So let's read it. But the being and action of the infinite. One of you has to read. Yesterday Shilpa read. So today, yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. It's a little weak, but we can hear you.
But the being and action of the infinite.
Now we can't hear you.
I think okay. If somebody else can.
Okay. So, Jasmine is there?
Yes, I can read.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
But the being and action of the infinite must not be therefore regarded as if it were a magic void of all reason. There is, on the contrary, a greater reason in all the operations of the infinite, but it is not a mental or intellectual. It is a spiritual and supramental reason. There is a logic in it because there are relations and connections infallibly seen and executed. What is magic to a finite reason is the logic of the infinite. It is a greater reason, a greater logic, because it is more vast, subtle, complex in its operations. It comprehends all the data which our observation fails to seize. It deduces from them results which neither our deduction nor induction can anticipate. Because our conclusions and inferences have a meager foundation and are fallible and brittle. If we observe a happening, we judge and explain it from the reason and from a glimpse of its most external constituents, circumstances, or causes. But each happening is the outcome of a complex nexus of forces which we do not and cannot observe, because all forces are to us invisible, but they are not invisible to the spiritual vision of the infinite. Some of them are actualities working to produce or occasion a new actuality. Some are possible that are near to the pre-existent actuals and in a way included in their aggregate. But there can intervene always new possibilities that suddenly become dynamic potentials and add themselves to the nexus. And behind all our imperatives or an imperative which these possibilities are laboring to actualize. Moreover, out of the same nexus of forces, different results are possible. What will come out of them is determined by a sanction which was no doubt waiting and ready all the time, but seems to come in rapidly to intervene and alter everything. A decisive divine imperative. All this our reason cannot grasp because it is the instrument of an ignorance and a very limited vision and a small stock of accumulated and not always very certain or reliable knowledge, and because too it has no means of direct awareness. For this is the difference between intuition and intellect, that intuition is born of a direct awareness, while intellect is an indirect action of a knowledge which constructs itself with difficulty out of the unknown from signs and indications and gathered data. But what is not evident to our reason and senses is self evident to the infinite consciousness. And If there is a will of the infinite, it must be a will that acts in this full knowledge and is the perfect spontaneous result of a total self-evidence. It is neither a hampered evolutionary force bound by what it has evolved, nor an imaginative will acting in the void upon a free caprice. It is the truth of the infinite affirming itself in the determinations of the finite.
Yeah. One page para and very interesting. We'll have to discuss in great detail, particularly all these words which are using, we'll have to go into great detail and see what he meaning. See, he's using very interesting words. He's saying actualities. The about the seventh line from the top of the page 344, he is using the word actualities. Then he is using the word new actuality. Then he is using the word pre-existent actuals. Okay. Then he is talking about new possibilities. Then he is talking about dynamic potentials. Okay. Then he is talking finally of the imperatives. So there is a gradation here, and we'll have to look into this very carefully because it's very interesting actually what he's saying. Okay, but it is complex. We'll have to give examples of each one. Okay, what he means by actuality, new actuality, what is a dynamic potential, and what is a passive potential. Okay, so all these are very interesting. We'll have to do that next time. We'll have to wait for one week. Okay, but what I can do today, I can just read out the summary of what he's saying because we have got 5 minutes. Okay, 4 minutes. So I'm reading out to you. Basically, he is expanding on the idea that the mind cannot understand the reality. So you have to go beyond the mind. Your consciousness usually is using your mind as an instrument of understanding the world. But it is defective. Therefore, it has to go beyond and use another instrument. And what is that instrument? It can be intuition, which is higher than the mind. Or it can be even the supramental consciousness. When you go there, the true solution to all the problems of life get explained very well. Okay. So this is what he's saying in the basically in the para. I'm reading out the summary. But the Supreme Spirit may be a mystery to us, but it is not an irrational freak without logic or method. Okay, there is a logic and a method, but that logic is not mental, it is supramental. Okay? Its logic is of the infinite. Its methods are allied to the totality of all forces. The vision and will are integral in the infinite. Okay? So, man sees events and judges them by the results and some incomplete data. But the forces invisible to man also contribute to the final event. There are so many things which you don't see. It's very interesting. I'll give you just one instance of this after I finish the reading the summary. Mental reason is partial, half blind. Spiritual intuition sees the whole. It takes into account, what does it take into account? External present actuals, actual facts in the physical world, which are present. Okay. Then there are pre-existent actuals, which are the past. Okay. The past, there are pre-existent actuals which have happened, and the events that are happening now are a result of that past. Okay. Then there is potential activities. Potential activities are the future. You can have many things. Okay. Then there are dynamic actuals, events in the present, possibilities of which may or may not fructify, imperatives. Then there are imperatives in the process of manifesting finally the divine sanction to all the events. So there's a gradation of all this. The past is influencing the present has got all sorts of events, and the present will also manufacture the create the future, but there is a divine intention which is being worked out in the infinite. All these things are there, we don't see all these forces. The infinite consciousness is not a free caprice. It is not something whimsical. It is a logic, okay? It does everything with logic. Its method and logic are greater than ours. This is what basically he's saying. Now, go back to that paragraph which we read just now, okay? He's saying, just 1 second. Yeah. Its logic is the infinite, its methods are allied to the totality of all forces. Its vision and will are integral. I'll give you only one example. It's very interesting if you see. Okay. 100 years ago, we did not know that it's going to rain in 3-4 days. Nowadays, we know because we have satellites in the sky and we see the formation of the wind formations and we know the temperature of the seas and the atmosphere, and we know that a storm is going to come, and then you can predict. So the more accurate your total number of data, the more accurate will be your forecast of the weather. I'm just giving you one example. So the meteorological science now has been able to identify 14 elements of data. The wind, the temperature, the depression in the atmosphere, the formation of the cyclone. So there are 14 data which they can, but it's not full, only 14. So even although our forecast of weather conditions is quite good now, not so at all 100 years ago, but it's quite good, but still it's not perfect. We still can't say where it will rain and where it won't. We still don't know. Okay, there's a scattered rain. Okay, the Pondicherry may get rain, may not get rain, scattered rain. So this is one example only. The more data you have, the more you will be able to be accurate. And when will you get more data? If you go to a higher level of consciousness. When you see all those possibilities. That's what he's saying. Okay, we stop here today and we will redo this para. It's a very interesting para. We'll discuss all those actuals and pre-actuals and potential actuals and dynamic actuals. Okay, very fascinating the way Srivendra uses these words, and we'll give examples also so that we understand what he's saying. Okay, so I bid everybody au revoir. And yeah,
Merci beaucoup.
okay, au revoir everybody. But
Dhanyavad.
I mean, yes, au revoir to everybody.